Season 3 of The Bad Batch is officially here, and I'm going to break down the first 3 episodes for you in 7 minutes or less. Let's dive in. Episode 1 is titled Confined, and we pick up with Omega on Tantiss in captivity at the Imperial. It's essentially a cloning base. This episode gives off some major Jurassic Park vibes to start off with everything out in the wilderness, but we quickly shift to Omega in her captivity, and she's working with Emery, which we saw at the end of the Bad Batch Season 2, and she is just doing the medical assisting type stuff that she did on Kamino or she was familiar with. But Emery is also wanting some of Omega's blood, which she is delivering to Nala Se, who is there as well. But Nala Se is still protecting Omega by getting rid of these samples that she is bringing her. So every time Omega takes her a sample, she will discard of it, delete it in the system as if it were never there. We also learn that Omega is like a dog whisperer, so she's working with these hounds that the Empire are using, and I guess they go on missions with the Imperial troops out into this wilderness that's kind of crazy. Omega is also still trying to connect with Crosshair, who is in captivity in this facility as well. He's kind of done with everything. He wants her to go on. She wants him to be with her, but he's kind of done with all of it. We also learned that there is something a little bit bigger going on here with Dr. Hemlock. He takes Nala Se to the vault that they have on Tantiss, and they are talking about M counts, which are midichlorian counts. So something bigger is going on here with this whole facility, whether it be cloning or something bigger is going on. Now these dogs that Omega takes care of, one that she really likes, Betcha, ends up being hurt and they're going to terminate the dog. Omega ends up nursing it back to health, but they're still going to terminate it anyways. So she kind of rebels and lets this dog go out into the wild. Hemlock figures out and kind of scolds Omega for it, saying that she's disobedient or rebellious or something like that. I was heavily invested in this dog, and fortunately we see in the final scene of the episode, the dog actually does make it and it's howling at the moon, and that is the end of Confined. Moving to episode 2, Parts Unknown, we pick up with Hunter and Wrecker, and they are appearing essentially as bounty hunters before Lady Durand, and they are essentially collecting bounties for this group to get tips or leads on where Omega is, where Hemlock has his facilities. From this, we learn that Echo is off with Rex, kind of doing their own thing. Hunter and Wrecker are together doing theirs, all trying to get to Omega. And Hunter and Wrecker decide they are going to take the lead that they've got and go to this planet to see if they can figure anything out. When they get to the planet, it's kind of like a jungle wasteland, but they come across these young clone Regs that we see, and they hang out with them throughout this episode. Continuing our Jurassic Park vibes, though, there's like a lot of crazy wildlife. So the Empire created these slither vines, is what they're called, and it's a very scary thing out in this forest that will pretty much take anything out. But eventually, the focus of this episode kind of hones in on finding a control panel that these kids are aware of that may have information on where Hemlock has moved their facility to. They fight through this slither vine for the rest of the episode. Eventually, it's like a Sarlacc pit type thing, and they're all escaping from this slither vine in their ship. They drop all these explosives down in the thing and it blows up. But the episode ends with Hunter and Wrecker letting these kids know that they are going to get them to safety and they are going to continue on. They're going to meet up with Echo and Rex and they are going to go try to find Omega. I personally thought episode 2 is the weakest of the 3. Not that it was bad, just not my favorite. Now for episode 3, The Shadow of Tantiss. I think this is the best one, by far. But we pick back up with Omega and Emery. They're doing their thing just like they were doing in the first episode. But we soon learn from Dr. Hemlock that it's a very important day. Some big things are going to happen in this episode, namely Emperor Palpatine is going to be here. Nala Se, though, does let Omega know that she needs to get out of this facility now. If they test her blood, they're going to figure something out and it's going to be bad for Omega. So that's why she's been getting rid of it every single time they take it to her. So she gives Omega her data pad and tells her to get out. Palpatine arrives, which is a great scene. We see the Praetorian Guard, and he's talking to Hemlock, and we learn that they are working on Project Necromancer, which we did hear about in The Mandalorian Season 3 with that Imperial Shadow Council, so we're starting to see some things connect here. Omega, on the other hand, is busy escaping, but she doesn't just go to escape. She goes to get Crosshair, breaks him out, then they escape. So Crosshair is back. He's with Omega. He's with the good guys, and they are trying to get out of this facility. We see the Emperor and Hemlock going into this vault, and there are these specimens. We don't actually get to see the specimens, but we get to see Palpatine looking at them, and I'm assuming it is these clone bodies that Palpatine eventually is going to try to transfer his essence into. Everybody then goes on high alert, knowing that Omega and Crosshair have escaped. There's a chase through this jungle. We see the big scary bear creature that was tearing people up in episode 1. It's here to do that to Omega and Crosshair, but the Imperials show up, these dogs show up, and it turns into a hunt between the Imperials and Omega and Crosshair. Betcha returns. The dog that she freed in episode 1 has survived until this point and helps them escape. They end up stealing an Imperial ship that came to find them. Omega, Crosshair, and the dog, they all get out of there. I was so relieved that the dog made it. I'm very invested in this very tertiary character. But the episode wraps up with Hemlock calling off the hunt for Omega and Crosshair, because we learn at the very end that Omega's blood has the M count that they are looking for Palpatine's specimens. So Omega has the midi-chlorian count that they need, which leads me to question, are we going to see a Force-sensitive Omega by the end of this? So overall, I would say it was a great 3-episode premiere. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it, and be on the lookout for The Force with Friends this weekend, where we take a deeper dive into these 3 episodes.